Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a little bit of disassembly and maintenance for you on this spicy little guy right here. This is the WE Knives Wasabi. Wasabi. One thing to note though, although this is a WE branded knife, it is WE Knives, the same folks who used to use the really terrible, crappy star screws. This is actually using Torx bits, and thank God for that. As a matter of fact, it really does feel like WE Knives has, as a company, whether as a policy or just a matter of they've come to their senses, that they have abandoned their stupid star-shaped screws, meaning the external stars. You know, Torx screws are star-shaped as well, but and that's just great, and that's part of the reason that you're going to see a number of WE Knives on my table. I mean, right now, literally sitting on my table, I have a bunch of knives. This one I bought. These three are on loan from Zelric. This one's on loan from my buddy Chris. Thank you, Chris. But nevertheless, you know, I haven't given them enough time lately just because I've been busy as heck. But seeing the fact that they responded to clear desire from both consumers and jackasses, although I don't claim to have any particular role in this, and move to a real screw is great. And it makes me think, okay, this is a company that's listening. This is a company that's improving. It's not, you know, driven by ego and pride necessarily, unlike some of us. And it's just it's a beautiful thing. And so I'm definitely interested in checking this guy out. We have, this guy has been carried some by my buddy Chris, carried some by my buddy me, and also is going to get a little bit more carry here anyways. But so I want to clean it out and get it in optimal shape before the review. So I'm expecting this guy, there you go, it's popping open. And we're good to go. Look at that freaking skeletonization. You know, you can't. Interesting. You know, the thing that's making me, that's stopping me, that's taking me aback, is that you know, I didn't necessarily expect this much of it. I mean, it's a big knife. That's the thing to keep in mind. It's like 3.8-inch blade there, and so I guess it is relatively light for the size, but it wasn't like generally when you see this extensive skeletonization, you feel it at some point in time. You're just like, wow, this is going to be super skeletonized. But on this guy, it feels right. It feels fine. But it's not one of those knives where it's like I expected to pop it open and find this kind of beautiful scalloping. But mind you, it is beautiful. They've done a great job here. Look at this. I mean, seriously, that's some nice machining. And so I got to give them credit for that, or at least as far as I'm a good critic of machining. You can also see here that they've got a little ledge on the pivot screw here that I will show off right here. Come on. That allows this guy, when coupled with the ledge right here, not to be a free spinning pivot, which is great. I mean, this is a well-constructed knife. You've also got some other niceties. You've got steel washers on top of the titanium, although practically speaking, I actually have talked to some engineer folks. I've talked to some knife makers about it. It's not really a thing. You know, a lot of people talk about the oh my God, it's going to wear holes in the titanium. Nobody I've found has ever said anything along the line other than, you know, maybe, but probably not an issue. But anyways, I guess it's fine to see here. I'll give credit for future-proofing or something like that. But anyways, there you go. So these guys are clean here. And by the way, if you're ever curious about any of the tools I'm using, go ahead and check my knife disassembly toolkit video here on the YouTube, where I talk all about the various tools that I'm using now and that I have used in the past and will use in the future. Although not too deep into the future, because the future is yet unclear. So anyways, there we go. That was very weirdly philosophical. Nice maker's mark over there. Cool. Nice detent. Nice. And then finally, I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to clean up the bearings. And all I'm going to do here is take them, and I'm using some 91% rub and alcohol here to clean these guys off. I'll just clean the bearings off a little bit. Do it again over here. And then we're good to reassemble here. I'm going to go ahead and use too much lubrication because that's the way I've been doing, and because I switched, I'm using 10-weight nano oil here. You know, I am not yet used to this applicator, which seems to put it down a little bit more liberally than I'm perhaps used to. So, anyways, there we go. All right, go ahead, drop the pivot in. The pivot needs to go in on this side, and it needs to be oriented in a certain way for this shelf to engage. So just make sure I do that right. And go ahead and throw the washer everywhere. That's cool. And dropped it in the puddle of alcohol. So, you know, yeah. That's neat. go ahead and reapply a little bit of lube as I'm doing this. And actually, while I'm down there, I'm going to go ahead and put a little tiny bit onto the pivot itself. Let everything spin a little more freely. Okay, dropping the bearing onto the onto that. There's a watch spring bar tool, which just uses a little tool basically. Well, it is a little tool, so that's why I'm using it as one. But nevertheless, yeah, that'll let me do that. The reason I disassembled it in the way that I did is because I saw that the pivot unscrews from this side, so I unscrewed these guys too, so I'm just dropping one side onto the whole affair. I'm going to use a little bit of the nano oil here again. Spread that on there. Beautiful. Not a problem. Still getting used to, greetings from California, by the way, although I shouldn't be dating these videos so much, because then people complain about my backlog. By this time next year, I might be in Moscow or something. Probably not. Kind of hoping to stick around this area. But nevertheless, yeah, so getting back on the knife disassembly horse, so to speak. I forgot how much peace this brings me. This is my second one of these videos, and honestly, I like this. This is weird. I mean, people highlight that all the damn time. But, you know, this brings me a little bit of joy, a little bit of peace. Not only because it helps me in the review process to talk about these kinds of things with a little bit more, I don't want to say objectivity because I'm a reviewer, so of course I'm not freaking objective. But nevertheless, it gives me a little bit more insight at the very least. But also I'm improving things, generally. So that's nice too. I'm going to use some blue thread locker here, blue Loctite. Put it on there, drop it in. WE Knives is a Chinese company. I think I've mentioned this previously. They're a really, really well-known company now. They are kind of becoming the default OEM for American and, frankly, other place in the world makers because they're doing really great work. They're probably my favorite Chinese knife maker at this point in time. Now that they've gotten rid of the stupid screws, they're doing such good work that it's really hard to object to them. And they're grinding their blades better than Rayot tends to. Although Rayot's great at making just beautifully intricate handles. And by better, I mean thinner behind the edge. They're more aggressive with their grinds. I don't know. WE Knives is a maker to watch. And as they're continuing to grow in prominence, it's a little bit scary, honestly, for the industry. Just because I worry that if something goes wrong with WE, you know, if this Atlas shrugs, a lot of people are going to fall. But at the same time, they're doing such good work that it's hard to argue with them at this moment. But I really do hope that other great makers come up. And, you know, like I'm hearing Best Tech is getting closer to getting towards WE quality. And, of course, if you're willing to go to the States, you got people like Three Rivers Manufacturing, and Millet, who are all doing really good work as well. But nevertheless, I'm glad I'm getting to check out a couple more of their more recent stuff, because without the screws, their work is really incredible. Okay, so what you just saw me doing there, by the way, I'm just putting the pivot back in, but you saw me kind of screw and then back out, and that's because I felt some resistance. And when you're dealing with nicely machined kinds of parts like this, the last thing that you want to do is really crank on something to get it to fit, because that usually means you're cross-threading it. And so what I did there is I was turning and I felt a little resistance, so it's like, no, I'm going to back off a little bit. And then when you spin backwards, it'll often give it a chance to reseat itself. So never use, you know, force as you're doing these kinds. Oh, yeah. Sorry, the action's good on this guy. But never use the force. It doesn't help. Never use the force. Guys, use the force. I mean, use the force, Luke. Seriously. I'm a Star Wars fan. Of course, use the freaking force. But never use force as you are disassembling these guys. Just because it tends to, that's a way that you hurt yourself and others, and the knife being the main other there. So yeah, there we go. But do use the force. And so what I'm doing now is just tuning the action here. I want it to be basically as loose as it can be without having any blade play. And right now there is maybe the tiniest hint, so I'm going to tighten it down a little bit more. There we go. Beautiful. And what we can see here is the action is very, very nice. I mean, listen to this thing firing. That's authoritative. I like this knife, actually. It's too big for me, so it's not like a knife I want to buy. But I like... God, I keep spoiling the reviews here, but so far I'm really impressed with this little guy. The machining is great. It's a nice, neat little design. There are some issues with it, absolutely. 100%. It's got some ugly, but at the same time, you know, this is well done. So, anyways, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of the day. And that, my friends, is wasabi. No, that was great. Way funnier than you guys thought it was. Anyways, have a good one, everybody. Bye now.